Okay. Hello, this is Doug McCarran. I'm doing an interview with Crysstal Hubbard, who's a producer and actor and writer and director here in San Diego.
Yes.
Yes. What projects have you been working on recently?
Currently, the one I'm most involved in is one we're calling Supergirl Unburdened.
Okay.
And what we're doing is we're trying to take advantage of the fact that direct new media outlets like YouTube exist, where in our case, there's a whole community of people who are comic book readers and fans. And it's good practice for figuring out how to do a project from beginning to end, making it look as professional as possible, having a medium that already has marketing there for you. And you put it out directly on YouTube. We don't own the product. This is something we just do for fun as fans. But it's something people easily become very enthusiastic about. This has been about a year and a half of work, from story concept to an attempted teaser trailer, to a successful teaser trailer, to being able to set up a team that can help me from beginning to end.
Okay.
And it'll be hopefully several videos, several episodes, doing several story arcs. It's a way to create a foundation for a production company that someday will do original projects and send them to film festivals. But it is about Supergirl. That was a character I was very excited about when I was younger. It was a very powerful character. She's very popular. And I feel that there are a lot of stories that could be told. This was a girl who was, she lost her home, her family, and the life she thought she was going to have when she was a teenager, which is very different from Superman's story and how he grew up. Essentially a human on Earth. He just had powers and he didn't know he was an alien. For her, Earth is a very alien planet. That makes her story very different from his. And we are approaching the story as if it's not an origin story. The characters that would have been in her age group, Supergirl, Robin, Speedy, are now grown up and older. And some really bad things have happened, some really good things have happened, and we're kind of catching up with the world that they live in. It's a world we've made a little bit different, just to have some fun with the characters and explore some relevant storylines for what's happening in the news today. We are pulling a lot of influence from there, almost as much as we're pulling from comic books. And we start filming it, and it feels like getting to play dress up in front of a camera.
Right.
It's fun. It's just, it's fun, and it's wonderful how the communities come together just because they're enthusiastic about telling the story.
So you're acting in it as...
I am. I am Supergirl. More specifically, I'm the woman who used to be Supergirl.
Interesting.
Yes. And when we come into the storyline, when the audience first sees it, you're going to see a story that will raise a lot of questions. You're going to see a world and a way of life that raises a lot of questions because it's very different from the comic books and the story that people would be familiar with. So as we go through the current story arc in the show, you're going to be getting flashbacks explaining how their world at that time came to be what it is. And that's how we're going to kind of differentiate ourselves.
Cool. Yeah.
Yes.
Where did the idea come from?
It was a collaboration. It came from an awareness mentioned several times from several sources that there were very few female-oriented entertainment. Well, I don't know saying outlets for it, but if you were simply wanted to sit down and watch a show, it was going to be about a man's origin, a boy's origin. And quite frankly, right now, there are more girls reading comic books than there are boys in some parts of the country. And more girls and women involved in these storylines. And I think that just speaks a lot as to the universal resonance that the plots have. So, of course, there have to be more women out there. There has to be more of an influence allowed in the community.
And you have other projects you're doing?
I do. There are several I've been cast in, including one called Broken Choices. That's done by another local filmmaker named Dante Dumas. And that is, I'm not going to give away too many plot points, but it's a very down-to-earth storyline where people have made bad decisions. Some people are trying to make up for them, and some people are trying to pretend they never happened. But it's for me, it was a chance to portray a character that seems to be one person, but actually turns out to be something else, but not in a way that you would expect.
Yeah, interesting.
And while that sounds very complicated, it's just something in a community where there can often be a lot of cookie cutter parts
Right.
and scripts.
Right.
It's nice to see somebody like Dante has put a little more effort
Right.
into creating a more three-dimensional character that isn't exactly what you would think, but certainly plays off something we would expect to see, because it's a storyline and a character that maybe in some exaggerated sense or undertone people could relate to.
Do you have the poster here?
Not for that one.
Not for that
Nope.
one. Okay.
We'll leave that up to Dante.
Okay. Yeah, it's. I've noticed a lot of people want to be screenwriters, so they follow the cookie cutter, but they don't
Right.
really have anything new to say.
Oh.
So it's nice to have
Well, yes.
new points of view.
Yes. Anyone can call themselves a writer.
Right.
And that's great. Anyone could be a writer, and anyone should be given the opportunity to do that. I don't think there's anything beyond how we could tell our story, how we could try to relate to people, how we can even just try to get maybe the voices in our head out of it.
Right.
Then putting pen to paper, sitting in front of a computer, putting it on film. Everyone deserves the opportunity. What becomes disappointing, I think, for a lot of people is wanting acknowledgement without putting in any of the real work that a lot of great writers have put in.
Yeah.
And understanding. It's you have to see who you're going to be compared to and why.
Yeah.
To understand why some people would expect a little more effort on your part. Don't be surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I relate to that as a musician because I spent 40 years practicing guitar, and I see people wanting to get on stage after 2 weeks.
Yes.
You're like, it takes a little bit more than that.
I'm sure that could be frustrating.
Yes. How do you pick a project?
Well, if it's one that I want to be a part of behind the scenes, then I'm really drawn to the enthusiasm of the current team or even the current creator behind it. It could be a writer, it could be a team of people that have already begun to assemble. It's an idea that they already believe in. That's a big step. Scripts can be changed, stories can be tweaked. Any of that technicality can be there, but if there's enthusiasm because there's something real behind the story, not just because people think it's an idea that people will like to see on film because, hey, I saw that scene in that movie that time and I think I can do something like that. No, it's a real story that they're trying to tell. This is something people are really connecting over. I see enthusiasm based on that, and right away, I think there's a lot of potential there and an opportunity to be part of a team that I'd be proud to make something with. So I'm looking for sincerity and enthusiasm based on a good foundation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're like, really, I mean, you're a producer, an actor, a writer. What all do you do?
Well, when I was in New York, I was taking a lot of courses on theater. I read a lot of books, and what it came from was I would go to an audition and I'd realize there's something I could have done better. There's a reason I didn't get the part. There's a reason that casting director said that to me, or directly take the advice from that casting director. And as you get into the theater community, just like you do with the film community, you start hearing about people's great experiences, people that they've worked with, somebody that they got to train with, lots of courses, lots of classes. Those turn into workshops, and you get to work with different directors. And at a certain point, I woke up one day and I was directing a show.
Huh, cool.
It just kind of snowballed into that. I was happy to do it. I was working with people I wanted to work with. I was working on a project that I felt we could put a new twist on. So it was very simple. We rented out a theater and we rehearsed for 2 weeks and we put on the show for 2 weeks. And we kind of almost sort of made our money back.
Right.
Sort of. That was that first time I was like, no, I if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to attempt to be a director, then I have to keep going with the acting.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what works for me. That's not what works for everybody. So I hesitate to say that I am a director. I think I'm somebody who can do the work of a director on a certain project because I've been an actor. I've been on the other side, and I have been involved in groups and projects where I've seen amazing progress made based on wonderful teachings that I got in New York and techniques. And I want to bring that experience in if I feel that that's appropriate for me to do, if I am confident in my ability to do that. So I do direct, but it's hard to say that I am a director as so much as I do it.
Right.
Because there are people who are directors. That's what they do. That's what they've always done. They were never really actors, and yet they're fantastic directors because there's something they've always understood as far as turning words on a script into a character, into something that could be seen in front of an audience.
Yeah, and keeping all the scenes organized.
There's a grunt work of the director as well, and line producer and assistant director, and I've been fortunate enough to be exposed to the responsibilities from beginning to end, a project from beginning to end, and understanding what everybody would have to do, and the abilities each person would have to have in order to make it work, even if it's a job they've never done before.
Yeah, pretty valuable assets.
Yes, they can be.
Yes. Do you want to talk about your the other project here?
Sure. That's upside down. Here we go.
Dying Alone. Oh, cool. All right.
This is a project that a dear friend of mine in New York named David S. Zucker. It became his brainchild, or Bunny, as we like to call it.
Okay.
If I were to break it down, it's really a story about second chances. The theme, the feeling behind it is that everybody deserves a second chance at life, especially. Sometimes there are moments where, like a diagnosis, could feel like the end of something. Could feel like you won't get a chance to do a lot of things unless something happens, unless something goes right. So this was a way to explore that theme. It really came from a lot of stories about women who had families or they themselves came from another country. Here in the United States, it's very normal. It's always talked about to have things like breast exams, to have awareness of treatments, to talk about it in the family. Is it something that is genetic in your family? But if you were to go international, that wouldn't happen as often. There are still a lot of stories people can tell about, even with a diagnosis, the woman wouldn't talk about it. She wouldn't tell her family. And she would allow the disease to take her life. And what's also happened from then, it would be passed down to the children. Not the disease itself, but the idea that you didn't talk about it, so the daughters and sometimes the sons would go through their life without ever knowing that it's something they should be aware of, something that they should...
Something that got passed to them.
Right. Could have been. It's something that they were susceptible to because nobody talked about how Grandma died. Nobody talked about how Aunt Claire died. And if you were to talk to even some young women whose families are, as they would put it, old world families, they wouldn't have gone through the experiences a lot of young women in this country have gone through, where we've been educated about it and allowed an opportunity to have even an exam that could allow early detection and early treatment and even prevention through certain surgeries. That it's not very common everywhere. And that gets tied into this story. That was a way to tell this. And so you have two childhood friends who could have become more than that. And with the theme, everybody gets a second chance, the question becomes, do you get a second chance at everything, including a life filled with the love you always wanted? But it's a way to tell that story and explore that theme.
Which we all want.
Everybody wants. Everybody hopes for. We all grow up as little kids, dreaming and hoping, and it's hard for a lot of people, but some people have lived it. It's hard for a lot of people to imagine a day in your life where you realize you may not get the chance to do all of that. But if it is found, any disease, in this case we not using breast cancer, but that became a way to tell the story. It could be anything you are diagnosed with. It could be cured. It could be successfully put into remission. For a lot of people, it feels like a second chance. Because it could have gone the other way, but now they get to live. That's the running theme of this production.
They probably live a lot more aware that they're alive than
for some people,
before.
Yes. It can feel like more of a gift. That second chance can feel like more of a gift. But that theme of everyone deserving a second chance, if the opportunity comes for whatever reason, I think is very relevant.
Okay, is there anything else you would like to
I think that's
on?
good.
All right.
Yep.
Well, thank you for coming out and talking with us.
Thank you, Douglas.
And I hope all your projects go well for you.
Me too. Thank you.
Yep.